We are going to be talking about cyber and infrastructure security, and it just so happens there's a federal agency who is tasked with that job. It is part of the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Act. It's part of Department of Homeland Security, and joining us for conversation about that is Rick Gardner, who is, I guess you'd say you're a cybersecurity expert or advisor.
I am.
For CISA, as it's called.
Yes.
All right, so now you understand, if we're talking about CISA, Cyber Infrastructure Security Agency. Rick, I would like to talk to you just about what it is that CISA does and how it works from a federal position down to local communities.
Yes, sir. So our responsibility with CISA is we lead the nation's efforts to understand the risk to critical infrastructure. So there are specifically 16 designated critical infrastructure sectors, and our responsibility is to work with them to assess and so that they understand the risks that they're up against and give them opportunities to add controls to manage that risk, to more securely defend those operations.
If I understand this correctly, what CISA is really doing is that it's not creating the police force and the soldiers and everything, boots on the ground to mandate and enforce security. It's more of let's train the local authorities or private people. Like if you're in chemical, I know that's energy's one of them. You've got water treatment and stuff like that. But any of these private and or public sector organizations to show them how to make themselves secure.
Yes, and it's not necessarily to show them how, but it's to work with them. We collaborate with them. There are tools that have been developed at a national level. And so as a CSA or cybersecurity advisor, I help to strategically employ those tools with those critical infrastructure owners and operators. So we have a lot that we can do. We typically start with assessments. We can do phishing campaigns, tabletop exercises. We help them to scan their networks. We can pen test their networks. We do a lot with them to mitigate then the risk. And because we're a federal entity, these services are provided to them at no cost. They're voluntary. And what we provide them is very helpful. A lot of it results from in a report. In fact, I provide a CRR, which is a Cyber Resilience Review. It takes 6 hours. It's kind of one of the initial assessments I provide, and it gives them full scope cybersecurity posture and opportunities to improve their operations.
So as an example, chemical is one of them. So if you were like Praxair and you were manufacturing oxygen,
yes,
that would be somebody that you would be interested in sharing your expertise with. If you were like a coal operator or a natural gas or petroleum developer, that would be somebody else you would be interested in.
Yes, so typically, I would be contacted. I would help them to understand and qualify them as critical infrastructure. So again, there's 16 designated. So here in the counties, I'm typically working, or I should say in the state, transportation, water, energy, emergency services. Of the 16, like health, direct patient care, so working with the hospitals, banks, finance, I work all those sectors. But so with the counties, I'll work with them individually. We help them to qualify or classify them as critical infrastructure. So like in a county, they have emergency services, typically like 911 dispatch centers as an example.
And how vulnerable are those systems?
Well, that's a good question. So some are more vulnerable than others, but the threat landscape it's always there. It's becoming much more persistent and advanced. And so we help them to understand and assess their level of exposure, their opportunities for improvement. And we use established frameworks. We use the NIST cybersecurity framework, also the risk management model. We've partnered with Carnegie Mellon University. We have really good tools that we use as we conduct our assessments. And again, they're given back then reports which really help them to prioritize time, resources, commitment, opportunities for improvement.
So I'm in Randolph, Utah, small little town. I'm the city guy. And we run our own water system. There's a Randolph Reservoir that's just up the canyon.
Yes.
And they treat the water and it comes down. And I'm thinking, I'm in a town of like 400 people.
Right.
I'm not on anybody's radar. Is that true?
That is not true. And if you were one of the 400 that is drinking the water, right, you'd want to know that there's been a proper amount of due diligence that's been taken to secure those operations and the exposure of the industrial control systems that are connecting potentially to a network where they are exposed. There is opportunity for those systems to be exploited for water to potentially be contaminated. And so we help again to identify that exposure, identify opportunities, even just physical. When we talk cybersecurity, there is a counterpart to me, which is called the PSA. He's a protective security advisor. So here in the state, he helps to secure and assess physical controls.
Like
Gates,
how exposed the shoreline,
locks, doors,
exactly.
cameras, doing those mitigation steps. And so as the CSA and a PSA, we work with water and wastewater to help understand and to secure their systems the best that they can be.
Excellent. We're going to take a break. We're going to broaden the scope of this conversation and look at the receiving end of all the things that you're providing right here on the county seat as we talk about CISA and cybersecurity in your own hometown. We'll be right back on the county seat. Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about cybersecurity and CISA. We have a representative from there, and joining the conversation is Ricky Hatch, who is the Clerk Auditor of Weber County and one of the officers of UAC. And we also have Wayne Cushing, who is the treasurer of Salt Lake County and one of our good friends. When I first started thinking about cybersecurity, the first thing I thought of was the county piggy bank. Could somebody actually drain the accounts of the treasurer of Salt Lake County?
Well, hopefully not. Well, hopefully we have the systems and protections there that would prevent that. But there are many, many people daily trying to get into the county's system, either through getting through the firewalls into the IT system, or by going through some hacking or phishing or ways to get monies from the county coffers that are fraudulent.
So do you like get a daily or a monthly or weekly report from your IT people that just say, these are how many challenges we had this week?
Well, we have a lot of people that'll come to us and say, hey, I got this email, or I got this phone call, or somebody tried to change a vendor bank account, or somebody asked for my payroll information or whatever. So it's a constant battle that we're always facing and fearful of what's out there.
So what would you do if you were to approach Salt Lake County as a cybersecurity advisor from CISA? How would you work with Wayne to help him improve? Because it sounds like he's already got a good system in place.
He does. And again, so I work with a lot of very mature organizations that have a lot of defense in depth, a lot of continuity built into their operations. But I do go back and start with typically a cyber resilience review, and that's an assessment. It takes 6 hours, it's at no cost, and I would work him kind of through ultimately using the NIST cybersecurity framework controls in all 10 domains. So from knowing what he has to how it's being configured and how it's being managed, and overarching policies to manage that, contingency operations plans, and to include external dependencies and how those dependencies are managed. I would take him through initially those assessments. I would offer tabletop exercises, phishing campaigns, which help to provide resources back potentially to the banks so that they can further deploy security.
So do you guys feel like you're at a point where, Wayne, you go, well, we've done our due diligence and we're up to speed and we've got our network at Salt Lake County covered. The piggy bank is secure. And your argument would be that the landscape
never ends. It's a continuous effort, always.
I think we're always fearful that there's going to be a new way of attacking, or new way of phishing, a new way of getting people to bite. and give out information that they shouldn't be giving out.
This actually also concerns me as far as the clerk auditor goes, because you're basically the record keeper of the county, and there's some grandma interfaces here that actually are a cyber threat. How do you guys work stuff out like that?
Well, the nice thing about the CISA group and them coming in and doing a cyber resiliency review is it's not contained to one specific system. It really is quite global, and you can focus in on some key risk areas. And yeah, if someone comes in and gains access through a weak grandma portal that we have, the elections or the finance, anything could be at risk. Because once they get in, they just wreak havoc, and they dig and poke in all aspects, all areas of the network. So, and you're only as strong as your weakest entry point, right? So we really have to focus on.
Not to pick on somebody, but Garfield County recently had a situation where somebody got in and locked up all their county information and held them hostage for it. Is this something that is becoming more common, right?
So it is. So ransomware attacks are absolutely one of the biggest threats, I think, to our critical services. When you work with us, there's no attribution. So we don't actually talk about who we've worked with. We don't provide any of that information. The other thing that we do is the reports where we've identified risks or potential vulnerabilities in the networks and operations. Those reports are protected under PCII. It's a protected critical infrastructure information program, so that the data that's in the reports, those areas for improvement, they can't be used in a FOIA, a GRAMA, civil litigation against a county, a system owner.
I guess that's an important component of it to get that engagement, is to make sure that they understand it's secure.
And they're pretty serious about it. We had a cyber resilience review done at Weber County. Rick can't tell you that happened, but I can, because I'm the user. And it was, I would compare it to a very thorough medical checkup, very thorough, and really informative. Really helpful.
How much, for either one of you, how much of your time in your capacities as a county elected official do you spend being engaged with this particular issue? I mean, is it one of the bigger gorillas in the room as far as your day-to-day operations?
I wouldn't say it takes up a lot of time, but it's ever present. We get phishing emails, probably 10 to 15 phishing emails a day, and not just some of them are just the vague ones. Hi, I'm from Nigeria and I have a business opportunity. But some of them are very specific. They have your name. They look like they're coming from someone else in the county. They're asking for payments for vendors for specific services. They're getting more sophisticated. And if you drop your guard even just for a second and click on a bad link or an attachment, that's bad for the whole county.
And I think it's important that you work with your financial institution, because obviously they're well aware of everything that's going on out there, and they're constantly offering training. So we try to stay up with what's the newest threat, so that we know what's coming up.
Would you find some relief that your financial institutions that you interface with had already used their services? Because that's one of the areas of infrastructure that you deal with. Is that not correct?
It's actually a tier 1 priority, the financial sector. And with the more mature companies, that's where, again, we use the pen testing. We have really in-depth 10-day pen tests where we really test then the controls that you have in place. We do VADERs, which we validate architecture so that the security in depth that you do have. We look at those devices, we make sure that there's no misconfiguration. We do traffic analysis. We help to conduct malware analysis. There's a lot of free, no-cost services that we provide.
Well, we've got to take a break. We've got some commercials to run. I do want to come back and talk about elections for a few minutes, because that's something that's on everybody's mind.
Now we're talking.
We'll return with the county seat. We're talking about cybersecurity in local communities and counties. We will be right back. Welcome back to the county seat. We are discussing cybersecurity today We are at the Utah Association of Counties for this particular get-together. We have been having a conversation so far about some of the things that CISA offers. There is one area that, from a national level on down, everybody seems to be on high alert right now, and that is meddling in elections. How much vulnerability are there in election systems?
If you're asking me, there's a potential for a lot, and it's because there's a lot of counties. So here in the state, 29, I believe we have 29 counties with various levels of built-in maturity, cybersecurity controls. But at the end of the day, there's a lot that's been done to secure elections. And so when you're asking about, is the risk there and is it real? It is. And if you're asking specifically, how vulnerable are we? I can't specifically speak to that. I haven't been out and conducted assessments at the 29 counties. That might be a better question for Ricky.
Okay.
But I can tell you too, working with Justin Lee at the election security, we have a task force that we specifically talk through the vulnerabilities and are doing a lot to assist and work with the counties to secure and to make those systems as risk-free as possible.
Yeah.
Absolutely resilient.
So Ricky, what's Weber County done? I mean, you're kind of a middle-of-the-road county. You're one of the bigger ones, but you're not the biggest nor the smallest.
We've taken, specifically, we've done a lot with really the highest risk when it comes to cybersecurity, and that's user education and user just good practices. Don't write down your passwords, don't click on links, don't open attachments from emails. Be suspicious, be aware and alert. Our IT department's done a great job at creating an education training process and some test emails and things like that.
But somebody would look at this and go, okay, we're doing paper ballots now. We're doing mail-in ballots, and that's our primary focus. And they go, oh, well, voting machine fraud is no longer an issue, but there's still exposure?
There is, and it changes a little bit when you vote by mail. One of the biggest risks, and I think this is true nationwide, is with voter registration databases, which are mostly housed at the state levels. In Utah, it's housed at the state level, but counties access that. Every county in Utah accesses the state voter registration database, so there is risk and exposure at every county level, regardless of how big they are.
How would that alter an election?
If someone were able to hack in a vote by mail, for example, and they say, I think I'm going to take every Republican and change their address. Then when the county clerk goes to mail the ballot out, we mail it to the wrong address. And now all of a sudden, that's all messed up. Or they say, I want to make every Democrat voter inactive so they wouldn't even receive a ballot. There are lots of different things they could do to affect the election.
So it's more like a front-loaded thing as opposed to going in on election day and just saying, well, let's add a few more votes to this candidate here.
That's right. And a common thing, too, is to just disrupt, just cause general concern about the integrity. So they might bring down the election results website where we're posting the results in the evening. That's not the official results by any means, but if you go and check it out and all of a sudden you see a flag of Iran or something like that, your confidence is eroded in the results of the elections, even if they're brought back and reserved and put out later.
So you guys make a pretty solid effort. I guess my question, going back to you, Rick, is, these guys have got a budget for it. They're a first-class county and a second-class county.
Yes.
But we've got a lot of counties that have, like Daggett County's got barely 1,000 people in the whole county. How do they come to the table, and how do you help them?
That's a good question. So quite honestly, partnering with CISA really gives them an opportunity to leverage what's being done at a national level. So for instance, the elections infrastructure ISAC. So instead of them having to chase down, for instance, threat information, they can subscribe to EI-ISAC, which then lets them, they get technical, they get emails that tell them what's going on, so kind of what the threat is, TTPs, I'm sorry, I use acronyms, but it's tactics, techniques, and procedures, and so that they're aware of those things, so they can then double check, honestly, their operations to make sure that they have controls built in, resilience built in, so elections do go off without a problem. So partnering with us, you have access to a lot of resources that, again, are all free and no cost.
So what's their next step?
So they should contact CISA or a PSA local. So that I'm Utah's cybersecurity advisor. Mark Lemery is the protective security advisor. You might want to start with our website. So it's www.cisa.gov, and that really explains our program. There's a specific cybersecurity link. There's elections, there's threat information. There's so much that's being done. If you'll work with me, I have a resource guide that provides for all of the services and what we do, contacts information, but you need to start with the EIISAC so that you're getting situational awareness. Work with the CSA so that we can come out and work with you on site. It's again about 6 hours to start with the cyber resilience review. That's a great starting.
And this is the 6 hours that you guys both think is worth it?
Oh, definitely.
Yep.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Rick, thank you for all of your information. Remember, local government is where your life happens, good things or bad, and you want to take every measure you can to protect yourself. Share this with your friends. We would love to hear your engagement on our social media. We actually do monitor and respond to your comments, so please be part of the conversation. We'll see you next week on the County Seat. Thank you for watching the County Seat. Be sure to subscribe and turn on your notifications to keep up to date on the program and happenings around Utah.